Recording in progress.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Chuck Taroni. I'm the Conservation Administrator, consistent with the Governor's orders superseding certain provisions of the open meeting law and allowing us to adhere to social distancing requirements during the COVID-19 crisis. This Town of Reading Conservation Commission meeting is being held virtually via Zoom. Audio and video participation of the conservation commissioners, the applicants and their representatives, and the public. During the meeting, myself or the commission chair will unmute commissioners, applicants, representatives, and members of the public as needed. During the meeting, the chair will be the only one permitted to share video. These controls are in place to ensure that tonight's meeting is safe and effective. At this time, Chair Scanlon will conduct a roll call vote to make sure that all the members are present and they can hear.
Thank you, Chuck. We'll have a roll call vote. Please remember this order. It will be the order that we do business in. Thank you. Joe Carnahan.
Joe Carnahan, member present.
Brian.
Brian Bowe, member present.
Andrew.
Andrew Dribbin, member present.
John.
John Sullivan, member present.
Martha.
Martha Moore, vice chair present.
And Danica Scanlon, chair present. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Please note that tonight's meeting is being recorded. Also be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and anything that you broadcast will be captured by this recording. All the material for this meeting is available on the Conservation Division site, and I recommend that the commission members and the public follow the agenda as posted on the Town of Reading webpage unless otherwise noted. However, because this meeting is being conducted remotely, I advise applicants in particular that commission members cannot discuss or consider documents which were not previously available. Information may be presented orally. Similarly, members of the public are encouraged to provide written comment, but should understand that not all participants nor the commission members will be able to see any of the written comments during the course of this meeting. Before we get started on tonight's agenda, I'm going to cover some ground rules for safe and effective and clear conduct of our business to ensure accurate meeting minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. After commission members made their remarks, and these remarks have been addressed by the applicant, the chair will afford public comment as follows. The chair will first ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify themselves by name. Once the chair has listed as a list of public commentators, the chair will call each one by name and afford them 4 minutes to comment. The applicant may be requested to respond by the chair or the administrator. After public comment, the chair will once again go down the list of commissioners, inviting each one by name to provide any further comment, question, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Finally, each vote taken tonight will be a roll call vote. Thank you. Chair.
Thank you. Okay, let's start our agenda with the first item. It's 1310 Main Street. I understand, Chuck, that this public hearing applicant has requested that it get continued to April 13.
Yes, I heard from Jack Sullivan, and he has sent me an email request to continue to April 13th. So if we can get a motion for that.
I'll move to continue the hearing on 13 Main Street.
Second that.
Okay, we'll take a vote on it.
Joe Carnahan, yes.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Okay, that's Andrew.
Andrew Dribbin in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor. Okay, thank you. The second item is 0 Small Lane. Also for this, the applicant has requested that the meeting be continued to April 13th. And the last I understand is there's no new updates, no new contact. Is that still the case, Chuck?
Right. I haven't heard from the consultant or the applicant's lawyer at all for this project. But I did hear from each one of them. The consultant said that they would not be around for this meeting, and their lawyer requested to continue, and that continuation is till April 13th again.
So I'll make a motion to continue 0 Small Lane to April 13th.
Seconded.
Okay.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Andrew Dribbin in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor. Okay, so that's the second hearing. The third item on our agenda is 16 Barney Circle.
Yeah, 16 Barney Circle. So I'll let Theo in. Theo will present this project. I don't believe Jack Sullivan's available tonight. So
Okay.
Theo, you should have permissions to turn on your video and mic.
Okay, then I will read the continuation script here. So for 16 Barney Circle, we are going to continue the public hearing for a notice of intent filed by Theodore Carmone under the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1, for constructing 2 additions onto an existing single-family house within the buffer zones of a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed during regular business hours at Town Hall Conservation Office, 16 Lowell Street in Reading, and on the Conservation Division page under the current project, 16 Barney Circle. And this property is Assessor's Map 29, Lot 109, DEP file number 270-0754. Hello, Theo. Welcome tonight. Good to have you here.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Can hear you okay. I understand we have a new plan provided by Jack Sullivan on March 6th. It looks like all but the thin drip trench is outside of the 35-foot zone, and the shed that's within the 25-foot zone is going to be moved out of the 25-foot zone.
Correct.
Is there anything additional you want to sort of add or comment on, or do you have any questions at this point?
No, I did get an email from Jack that I think just mentioned a few things about the project, but it's gibberish to me. I don't know. I'm not a construction person, so if you have any questions, maybe his commentary might answer. But yeah, I don't really have any questions.
Okay. So at this point, I'll just open up to the commission to see if commission members have any questions. Please raise your hand and I'll acknowledge you and we'll move on. I'm thinking Joe has a question. Maybe.
Joe is trying to manage a notes document and Zoom at the same time, which is a new experience for Joe, as well as trying to pull up the updated plans. So I see that the flags, were moved in line with our previous discussion, at least on the, what is that? That's basically the south side of the property. I see that the addition is now outside the 35-foot zone. I'm happy to see the shed go that was basically up in the wetland before. And I don't think I have any questions.
Okay. Would you like me, does anybody want me to share a plan? Go ahead, Martha.
Yeah, I was going to say it would be good to have the plan visible on the screen. And the other thing I want to say is I really want to thank Theo for considering the possibility of donating some of the extended part of the property to the town. I know that didn't work out, but I want to thank him for considering that donation, and perhaps in the future, say when he's going to sell the property, it might be a time that that might happen sometime in the future, and it could connect the conservation land on either side. The plan came up and went away.
Yep, here it is right here.
So the things that allowed the variance not to be needed were eliminating the shed or moving the shed.
I'm going to eliminate it.
Okay. And then the other difference was the corner cut out of the addition over near flag 22A. Is that correct?
Yes.
And were there any other things that would have required a variance other than those two changes?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Those were all my questions.
I want to chime in on the first part of what you said, Martha. I appreciate the effort, Theo, that you went through to consider that that gift of land or that donation or that additional. There's a number of ways that land can be additionally protected for conservation purposes, including something called a conservation restriction, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with or not. But that is not required for this project. What I just want to make sure you're aware of is, you know, we want to keep the door open for any future possibility that you would consider revisiting deeding or some sort of use restriction or gifting portion of that land to the town for conservation protection.
I absolutely would. I'm not sure if Chuck, I mentioned to Chuck, my loan was just sold. So on top of trying to get the current mortgagee to help me out with it, they then went and sold my loan. So once I get settled with the new lender, maybe it'll be easier with the new lender, but my account it won't be active for about another week, I think.
Yeah, no rush. And, you know, I appreciate your email explaining sort of how challenging the process was for you. It helped us understand, and just wanted to make sure you understood it wasn't a condition of your work. It was just something that we wholly encourage townspeople as stewards, you know, as shared protectors of the land to consider thinking about. So thank you. Any other questions from conservation members at this time? Seeing no hands raised. Any other questions from members of the public? Please go to reactions and use the raise your hand function.
Mika, I think Andrew Dribbin did have a hand raised.
Andrew, I'm sorry, I missed that. Go ahead.
Just a quick question. I mean, I wasn't present when you guys started talking about this project. So I just want to confirm that there's no trees being removed. It doesn't look like there's any trees being removed from this site in the back. Is that correct? Okay. Yeah, that's my only question at the moment.
Okay. I'm just trying to see if there's any other participant hand raised. I don't see any. So at this point, it sounds like we're at the end of discussion. So well, let me go to you, Chuck. Chuck, do you have any final questions?
I don't.
Okay. Okay. Well, then in that case, if there's no more discussion and no more questions, I will entertain a motion to close this notice of intent.
Move to close the hearing on the notice of intent for 16 Barney Circle.
I'll second that.
Okay. And let's have a vote on that.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
And Rowe in favor.
Andrew Drippin in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor. Okay. And Chuck, if we vote on, what's the deadline between motion to issue?
So there's, so I actually don't think I'd be able to even get to this between now and the next meeting. So if you could issue it at the next meeting and review it in between, that would be most helpful.
Okay. Okay. Do you have any questions on that, Theo?
Yeah, so how exactly does it work?
Good question. So how it works.
Oh, did you want to do it? Go ahead.
I'll give it a try. And Chuck, as usual, if I've missed anything crucial, please chime in. So how this works is Conservation has just voted to close the hearing. And what that means is we've heard everything we need to issue a order of conditions, which is a list of requirements of how you're going to do your project. Okay. So it's like a contract between you and us, explaining all the details of how it spells out how we understand you're going to do it. And you can read in that order our expectations on how the work's going to get started, done, and finished, and what's going to happen after that. Okay, so it's a contract essentially between you and us that says you're going ahead with your project, here's how it's going to happen. It gets recorded on your deed for your property so that future property owners can see it. So what Chuck needs to do is it's a substantial written document. So he needs some time he needs some good, healthy time to draft it. And then we need to, as commission members, we review it and then discuss those details and vote up or down on specific details inside that contract. And the contract is basically called a notice of intent.
Okay.
But we're drafting an order of conditions, which is, go ahead, Chuck. Just how we get there.
So once we close the meeting, our regulations allow us, so closing the meeting means that we're finished taking on information from applicants, abutters, and any documents. We have enough to consider your project. Once we close, we have 21 days to issue. And the commission during those 21 days will come up with conditions and evaluate the project. And at the next meeting, they will vote to issue or deny. I don't expect them, I have to say both, but we do have 21 days to issue. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay.
And then all the rest of the things that Anika said was true, but that happens after you receive it. And that's where we're at.
Okay.
Typically, I send Jack a draft, so you'll be able to review it also at before the next meeting.
And for most situations very similar to yours, a lot of the language that we have in the document is fairly typical from order to order. However, like anything, there's little site-specific differences that need to get worked on.
Okay.
So I'm not anticipating that this is going to be, compared to what we've done before, I don't expect this is going to be a very complicated order of conditions. But it's the final details of how it gets done.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. So we will discuss that at the next meeting, and then we will probably vote on it at the next meeting, which is
March 23rd.
Thank you. March 23rd. Okay.
All righty, thank you.
Okay, thanks for coming out.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Okay, the fourth hearing. Do we have people here for that, Chuck?
Yeah, it says Lot A. Let's see. If you're here for Lot A Main Street, can you raise your hand using the reactions button? Oh, Mikey. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else? No, I don't see anyone else.
All right.
Mikey, you have permissions to turn the video on and speak.
Well, I'm going to read, I'm going to reopen it. So we are going to continue at this time the public hearing on a notice of intent for Lot A Main Street next to 1261 Main Street, filed by LLC Frank Lanzillo pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Wetlands Protection Act. The applicant proposes construction of a new single-family dwelling on a vacant lot. New improvements also include a driveway and utilities. All work is within 100 feet of a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed on the Conservation Division page under the current project, Assessor's Map 51, Lot 95, Mass DEP file number 270-0749. So, Chuck, at this point, the latest news on this project after the last hearing was an updated plan with some updated list of what they intend to do, which I know got posted to the division projects page.
Yes, it did. Mike, you want to run us through the changes that was made on this plan? Do you want me to pull that up so it helps out a little bit? Or are you prepared to walk through those changes?
Yeah, you can pull it up. That'd be great.
Sure.
And Mike, just for the sake of the record, could you just state your name and where you're from?
Yes, Mike Salamone, from Reading. I live on 45 Beacon Street, Reading. And Gio couldn't make it to the meeting because of the weather. He was on a flight and it got delayed, so he couldn't make it. But I hope I can do my best to answer some questions. Yeah, I came down to the town hall. I spoke with Chuck last week, and you know, there was a little confusion on the vernal pool and everything, and I said, you know what, why don't we just go ahead and keep the house outside the 100 foot of the potential vernal pool and stay outside the 35 foot on everything. And I think that Gio updated the plan, so we are not going to be seeking any variances. I believe that we're outside of all the boundaries.
Yep, that's what it looks like. We also got on the plan, we got a planting plan. We have a plan that shows the trees that are coming down, 28 trees. And that breaks down to, yep, so 26 healthy and 2 dead trees. The 28 trees are coming down, and the plan at this point for what's going to happen to that backyard, looks like there's going to be some perimeter arborvitae and some northern arrowwood on, is that on the northern side?
I'm not seeing this plan. I can just see the upper. I don't know if everyone else can see the same thing I'm looking at. But
Okay, we can only see like a small part of the screen.
Yeah, I'm only looking at the top right-hand corner, which doesn't show much.
Sure, I was showing you the tree removal. I'm gonna back off a little bit so you can talk about other things.
So I believe on one of the pages there was, yeah, so there are all the trees, yeah, all the arborvitaes.
Okay.
There you go.
And then there's a note that the applicant will install signs at the 100-foot protection setback from the vernal pool to restrict use of that area for the first 3 months of the year
Correct.
to protect the migration patterns.
Mhm.
Okay.
So what the applicant has done is taken away the, well, this arc here is jurisdictional with the Wetlands Protection Act. And I think we were discussing whether that should be continued or not through our regulations. Looks like the applicant has accepted that, moved the infiltration chamber out of the way. And in this area here has taken the house back in back of that line. And in this area will receive plaques, native planting, and a restriction on it during the first 3 months of the year. This red line, I think it's noted somewhere that it's a Reading jurisdictional setback.
Correct.
I think that there's some other changes where there were some trees that were in this area here that were removed, and those came out. I'm not sure if this was on this plan or another plan, but the driveway has been moved over to the corner. Now I'm gonna have to go and get a battery to plug this in. So Anika, can you take over again?
Yeah, if you want to, if I might have a site plan too, if you want to stop screen sharing. So at this point, I'll entertain it, comments from commission members. If you would raise your hand, other commission members, if you have questions or comments. Joe, go ahead.
Yes. So obviously, the driveway is now moved 35 feet from the wetland. That has moved it into the space. It was previously a rain garden with a plan to sort of collect water and then deliver it to the wetland. I do see a riprap outfall on this plan, and I can't figure out what that's coming from. What goes in to come out there? Or is that actually just left over from the previous plan when there was a rain garden on the opposite side of the driveway?
Not sure what you're referring to.
So on my view of the shared screen, it just got covered by a yellow square.
Sorry, it's here.
Anika, I can't see what you're pointing at, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm not sharing my screen. I'm sorry. If you go down the driveway, about approximately halfway down the driveway, there's a drain line underneath the driveway that goes to the right. And right near one of the green trees, there's a spot. And then there's a line leading to that says to the right out in the wetlands riprap outfall. And it says invert.
Right here.
202, I believe.
202, yes. So I was trying to understand from the data plan what goes into that.
What's feeding that?
I am not sure.
So it was. Oh, is that me making that background noise? Sorry about that. Hopefully it stops.
I don't hear it.
So what's feeding that is there's a low spot in this property right here, and this property right here, and that was brought up in one of our first meetings. And the applicant said to alleviate that ponding and to not restrict it with their driveway, they would put in a culvert and allow that water to move from screen left to screen right into the wetland.
Okay, I mean, I certainly recall the problem, and I was going to ask about, based on the answer to the question of the inflow to that drain, I was going to wonder about the current situation with runoff from the driveway that would be going north, but a screen left. But yeah, right now I can't tell where that is going other than the abutter's backyard.
It might
It's just
just
going into
Are you
something.
talking about grading? Is the driveway grading to the left or right?
The driveway appears to be graded slightly to the left based on the contour lines, as it was before, because it was trying to grade away from the wetland, and we don't want to feed water directly from driveways into wetlands. That we're all on the same page there.
Yes.
Yes, that D there with the drain
Right.
for drain.
Yeah, it's just the only thing it shows on this plan is that it's a culvert and it exits onto riprap and then it's delivered into the wetland. In the past, there had been a rain garden there, or rain garden type structure, but now it's just a drain.
Yep,
Culvert to nowhere.
I don't see a detail that says what, the drain diameter. I'm assuming it's a driveway under drain, something 4 or 5 inches maybe. But that might be helpful just to get that clarification. Did you have another question, Joe?
No, I think all my other questions were sort of related to that. So we just need to get clarification on that drain situation from the north side of the driveway towards how water gets from there to the wetland.
I agree, and I think even it points at riprap, but again, there may have been a detail in a previous set of plans, but I don't see a detail in the current plans.
So
we know sort of the area of that riprap outfall, or is it going to be just to get a sense of it? It doesn't look big according to the plan, but it may help to get just specific details on that. Joe, I cut you off a little bit. Did you have another question? Okay.
No, that was it for me right now.
All right, Martha?
Yeah, I also had noticed that we've lost the rain garden by moving the driveway out of the 35-foot zone, and that's unfortunate. I also noticed that in this plan, there is a tree planted in the driveway near the garage. I suspect that's left over from a previous plan. It does not count in the 5 red maples that are all on the other side of the house. So I think that tree can just be eliminated from the plan. I'm glad to see the red maples are now moved further away from the house. I am concerned that it seems to be that they've had to bring in 2 to 3 feet worth of fill to bring the house up high enough above the wetland. So there's quite a steep slope going up from the 25 toward the 35-foot line. That's all fill now. I'm wondering how wide the driveway is. I don't see anything that gives a width of the driveway now.
As far as the driveway, I think Gio touched on it in the previous meeting that I forget the exact dimension, but there was a certain dimension that it needed to be coming off of Main Street.
I see that 16 feet at Main Street. And
Yep.
did it stay 16 feet the whole way?
No, and then it shrinks down a little bit, right where that riprap outfall is, just to stay outside of the 35-foot.
Okay.
But it's still.
Then it gets 22 and a half right in front of the driveway.
Yep.
Okay. I am still concerned about snow storage. There was some discussion of snow storage to the left of the garage, right at the place where the driveway turns. I'm concerned that there's no room for snow storage on the abutter's side of the driveway, because the driveway is right up against the fence, and the 35-foot zone is very close to the driveway. So perhaps the snow storage could be between the turnaround and Main Street. That looks like really the only place that's got enough room for snow storage. So we might want to put in the order of conditions something about limiting where the snow can be stored, and if there's too much snow, to have it trucked off site. I don't want to see the snow all bringing debris and oil and gas and stuff like that into the wetland as it melts, if it gets pushed off to the downhill side of the driveway.
Sure. I don't think we've have other spots in town where the snow storage, there's been snow storage areas made out of crushed stone that are within the 25-foot area. So there's no prohibition against storing snow within that 35-foot area.
Okay.
Just,
Good to know.
but you, a condition like you mentioned, and then a condition for maintenance to kind of pick up the trash and make sure that doesn't just migrate into the wetland in the springtime would be helpful.
Okay. Good.
Can I have a question on that? Is that regarding to the whole 35-foot, or is that regarding to the 10 feet in between the 25 and the 35-foot?
Can you push snow into the 35-foot area?
Yeah. Yes. Or is that just the 10 foot from the 25 foot to the 35 foot?
The 35-foot area is a no structure zone. Snow is for the most part water, except for the salt. But the commission can manage the salt by putting in a condition in the order of conditions, and then another condition about doing maintenance. And I think that those two things would be covered. So I don't see the reason based on this project or past projects why the plow couldn't, push it into that 35-foot zone along the driveway.
But not past the northern Arrowwoods, perhaps?
Exactly.
Part we're talking about. So between the 25 and the 35-foot line, they could make a snowbank.
They could. They'd have to be pretty careful about the drain pipe, which I'd like to make some comments on when it's my turn. But so maybe they're not going to get it in that area, but in front and back. And I liked your plan about trying to pile it up by the front, just making sure there wasn't some sort of it didn't block anyone's vision.
Okay. Andrew has his hand raised. Go ahead, Andrew.
Thanks, Nika. So first, you've made a lot of changes, and I appreciate that. You've definitely listened to a lot of our concerns, and it's moving in a direction I think we could talk about more details like we are right now. But before we get too far, one thing, it's still a project that's removing a lot of trees and doing a lot of alteration to the existing landscape. So since this plan is so kind of set on that vernal pool, personally, it'd be much easier to make a decision if we could just get that vernal pool certified. This is a good time of the year to do it. That's what the wetland specialist said a few weeks ago when he joined the call. And it may come back and say the vernal pool is not really a vernal pool, and that will free you up to build in a different way or come back the other way. But we're just kind of assuming right now, and I don't like that. So I'd prefer to have, especially, I mean, it's really defining the structure. So I think that would really help me in terms of making a stronger decision in terms of what to do here. Otherwise, my other comments just relate to the planting schedule. It's a little simplistic in terms of what we have. The 4 red maples, the wall of arborvitae, and then the just the line of the shrubs, basically, which are pretty tight knit. It's not a fair exchange between taking down all the trees that were there. I think it can be managed, though. I just think I would like to see a better landscape plan that's more diverse and more natural, per se. I don't know, but just to take a second look at the way it's being done. And then just lastly, we hopefully rethink this, in the name of conservation, we've really pushed that driveway right up against the neighbors. We've become a bit unneighborly. So when you rethink the landscaping, I would personally be open to doing a variance for the driveway if we landscape it in a way, and hopefully we get a rain garden back in there. That would be something if we can make the plan, the landscape plan, more amenable to some of these things. I think I personally would be open to a variance for the driveway. But this all starts with the vernal pool, I think. Just since it's having such an impact on the design, I think it would really be helpful to get that certified.
Mm-hmm. I had talked to Chuck, and he made me aware that the regulations for a vernal pool versus a potential vernal pool are the same. And whether that is a vernal pool, and this is my understanding, I might be wrong here, but whether that is a vernal pool or not, we are outside of it. So we're kind of just saying, okay, well, just in case it is a vernal pool, why don't we just stay outside that 100 foot anyways? So I don't see the need for it to be delineated. I mean, I will if need be, but I believe that we are abiding by those rules, whether it is or whether it isn't.
You have the same understanding I do. We're assuming, and you are cooperating and assuming it is well. So, I mean, I appreciate that. But since it's having such an impact on the design of the project, for me, I would like to see it, someone that knows what they're doing, go out there and actually delineate it. It would just, from our point of view, my point of view, it would make my decision easier, which is, yes, I would appreciate that personally.
Okay.
As far as the variances go for the driveway, if we were seeking a variance, and then I'm not sure exactly what happened with the variance. Maybe there was a miscommunication between us and you, I'm not really sure, but then we just decided to keep it out because we were going to replicate wetlands, and then we decided to go the route, which is not seeking any variances.
Yeah, and you don't need a variance the way you have it planned.
Right, but you proposed to move the driveway a little further away from the neighbor's property and seek a variance. Yeah, I mean, either way, I'd like to see the planting schedule. Landscape architect take a closer look at it. Personally, that would be nice. Just some more variation in terms of the types of plants. And then when you're looking at that and you're improving the landscape with some design to it, it'd be nice to consider how you could potentially move the driveway away from the neighbors. So if it's designed and it's presented in a way that's, look, it's providing more ecological habitat. We got some very diversity of trees here and plants. To present it in that way, I would be more open to a variance. But the way it was presented before, it was not in a way that I appreciated personally. So I don't want to confuse things anymore. You do not need to do that. I mean, you do need for my opinion, to get approval, rethink the planting, but you do not need to move the driveway because it's fine as it is. But I think it would be nice and neighborly to do that if we could.
Okay. Thanks, Martha. You have your hand raised.
Oh, yeah, I had a couple of other things I wanted to say before you called on Andrew. Sorry about that.
Acknowledge you.
One was, I appreciate that the footprint of the house has reduced and it's narrower than it used to be. So that it's keeping it out of the 35-foot zone. And I also appreciate moving the trees that you're planting to be further away from the house. But if Chuck could move the map so we can see the top corner of the house. Right up at the very top corner near that shed on the neighbor's property, there were 2 trees on the map up above labeled T24 and T28, which were originally planned to be saved on the first plan that was produced. And I'm wondering if we can allow those 2 trees to remain. I think they are far enough away that they could still be there near that neighbor's garden shed, and maybe not put in quite so many arborvitae and leave a couple of trees. And that was it.
Okay, thank you. Just want to check with John and Brian. Brian, go ahead. Please unmute.
Okay, I just have a question about the signage. With the assumption that things stay the way this plan is, you're talking about having signs at 100 foot. So to try and understand what the value of those signs are, what can you tell us about the signs? Are they going to last for very long? Are they going to be replaced? As the homeowner permit becomes in the end, are they going to be required to maintain those signs? And if and when we go forward with this, I think there needs to be an order, a condition, the order of conditions relative to that signage to make sure it stays in place and retains the value. So given all that, what can you tell us about what you're thinking for the signage?
We can put whatever signs you would like up there. You can put whatever. I mean, we're willing to work with you guys, and I mean, if you want us to put concrete posts in there, we'll be no problem doing that. So they won't get washed away or anything, or anything that you'd like. We can make that happen.
Okay. Go ahead, John.
So when the applicant came in, I did let them know that the Conservation Office does have signs, but it just says restricted area, and there's a picture of a salamander on it. If you wanted signs that had more of a description, it could be also added to the signage. And we do usually require granite or concrete bounds that are set at least 2 feet into the ground.
Sure, no problem.
So Chuck, are those metal signs, like street signs, if you will?
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen them around town, but they're on a piece of tin, and they're painted. They're about 4 inches by 4 inches. They're not very big, so it doesn't take over the area, but people will notice them. And typically the commission does not put the signs on the lawn. So it's at the edge of the lawn. So as I look at that, there would be no more than 3 signs as it cuts through the lawn area.
Okay. Yeah, and it sounds like it's tin, so it's going to last for a while. So my last thought on that then is, I think there still needs to be a condition that would get passed on to the homeowner, that they would know they need to keep the signs in place and make sure that protection stays in place.
Yeah, I did think that you had a great idea for the applicant to add an additional sign that probably, usually when I see the applicant come in with a sign, it's much more substantial than what we have. And it could have a little more explanation on it. That might be something, but we have some, they've worked, and the homeowner can come back to the town hall and pick up additional signs if they lose them. We have plenty.
Right. So as long as they're aware that they need to keep it posted, then they might come back and ask for more.
Yep.
Okay. Anika, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. John Sullivan, Just want to check in with you.
I don't think I have anything else. I think we've covered all of my questions.
Okay, Chuck, before I open up to the public, I wanted to give you a chance to comment.
Sure. So Mike, in this area here, I think you can collect the water and have it drain underneath the driveway and spill into a low area that's not riprap, but into a vegetated basin, even though it's in the 35-foot. And Anika, you've been on the commission, that doesn't usually need a variance. I can remember the one Al Couliard's project on Sanborn where we actually asked them to put the spillway closer to the wetland in that case. So I think that there's an opportunity in this area here to deliver the water from this side into a basin, a rain garden, a bio cell like we saw at last 2 weeks meeting, and then have a spillway to have that cleaned water delivered into the wetland. So I don't think you need to just do the pipe and riprap. There was a discussion with Giovanni about having it on this side, and he felt that it was needed on this side here. I think it works over here also. Just bringing that up to your attention. You have plenty of room to put it in also. You would definitely have to avoid it with snow though.
Okay, so you're proposing a catch basin there.
I'm proposing to dig out an area by a foot, have Geo put some design into it, but just to dig out an area that's lower than the grade that's around it and have the water from the left side of the screen drop into it. It's like a tub. It'll hold the water, and what doesn't go into the ground will spill over the edge. It's typically a rain garden, it's a forebay, it's a biocell. Those are the terms that people use. But just think of like, a tub lined with vegetation, even grass, and then when it fills up, there's one spot where it goes out, and that's just manipulating the soil and site work. With you have to bring in topsoil and then some more either vegetation or grass. But I do think there's an opportunity there to do that, and that may help. And Joe's got his hand up. Let's see what Joe thinks.
I was just a clarification question on your what you're saying here, Chuck. So it sounds like another part of what you're proposing would also mean that instead of the driveway being very slightly graded away from the wetland, that it would be slightly graded towards it?
No, this doesn't have anything to do with the driveway. It's just that the water is being collected in this first lot right here, down at this edge, and that's the need, without the driveway being there at all. So, it may collect some of the driveway. I'm not asking for any, redesign the driveway. This is just taking care of water that I assume is going to go through the pipe based on, I guess, the documentation that we got from Giovanni at, I think, the first meeting. So there's no topography lines here, but I think that it's shallow.
Aren't there?
I'm assuming that Geo moved that rain garden because it's within the 35 feet. Is that correct? Correct me if I'm wrong, but are you proposing just put it there? And
I think he moved it because they put the driveway there.
Oh, okay, and didn't think that it would maybe not work on the other side. I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, I mean,
it's to put it in there. And I have no problem with that.
I mean, Joe, what do you think if it's on the other side? And you had a question about grading. I don't think we should grade the driveway into it on that side. It could always go off screen left and then come around into the biocell after it goes through the culvert. Just give it more time to soak into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think my opinion on this is dependent on understanding how water goes into the culvert, which is, I think, an open question we would like more information on.
Okay. Chuck, do you have other questions? Because I will check with the public.
No, that was my only question.
Okay. I'll open it up to the public. If any other people attending here on the Zoom call tonight or have questions, please raise your hand. Not seeing any.
Scott Berger. Hey, Scott.
Scott, just for the sake of the record, if you could just introduce yourself and go ahead.
Scott Berger, 1301 Main Street. I am the corner of Nelson and Main, that first property north of the driveway, essentially. Yeah, that one.
Okay.
Yeah, so one of my questions, I'll just, second Joe, about how does the water flow into the culvert, knowing that it is angled towards my property. And I know a lot of people have heard this, but I'll say it again before Mike. Yeah, where that drain is, that is the low spot on my property. And so the property to my, the next one down Nelson, their property kind of slopes into mine, and my property slopes away from Main Street, and that's the low spot, and it flows into the wetlands there. So there was a rain garden there. Now they've put the driveway over it. So where does that water go? The driveway is going to be sloped towards my property. And this is something that also Martha mentioned it a while ago that's been on my mind. The removal of all of these trees, these large trees and the root system, that they absorb a lot of water themselves, was the question. Like, do these arborvitae, like, now that we're not going to absorb as much water, and now we're putting, asphalt, well, pervious, with runoff, there's going to be more water, it seems like, potentially pooling around these spots. And is this system designed for all of that? Is it like over-engineered is my concern to handle the water. And like my second comment about the driveway is, what system is in place? Who audits the compliance with any of these possible conditions about maintaining signs or maintaining the driveway or snow removal? Because I just see someone buying the house, seeing the conditions and saying, yeah, sure, and then never doing anything about it. And who's ever going to make sure they're in compliance with this potentially long list of conditions to maintain this house?
I can address that. So every project that I had Giovanni do for me, we always design the systems in excess of what's required. There's minimum requirements for, I'm not sure if they call them 20 or 30-year storms or whatever it is. And we always exceed the minimum requirements by a lot to ensure that it's not going to impact your property whatsoever. And I can give you my word on that.
Okay.
Chuck, do you want to try answering some of the other questions?
Yeah, I actually am curious. I don't understand the question that how does the water go into the pipe? And I'm assuming that Giovanni is going to take some shots and put the pipe right at the low spot, and may even be a little bit lower than that, and put some riprap in it, and then put the pipe on top of that. So the new low spot is going to be the entrance to Giovanni's pipe, and then it's going to be pitched towards the wetland. I think that's what he has in mind. Now, the actual elevations, I don't know. The size of the pipe, I don't know. I think 4, 6, maybe even 8-inch would be too small, but 10 and up would be something that I would think we would see there and would manage the flow. But that's definitely a question for Giovanni, since it's not on the plan.
Chuck, I mean, we could put it in the order of conditions that the under drain pipe has to be sized and sloped in order to facilitate in order to eliminate ponding on this property, you know, on the abutting property.
Yeah, so, yeah, you know, wish Giovanni's here. I'm not sure that he's going to agree to eliminate ponding on that property, but what moves across the property line, he definitely would take care of. And I don't think he's going to propose doing work in that neighboring property.
No.
So something, you know, what you said, but understanding that we're only talking about this property, not
This property.
other property. Yeah. So,
Exactly. Scott, you still have your hand raised. Do you have another question or?
I'm sorry. Well, I did kind of put two questions in. The second one was how does the town how I phrase audit compliance with any of these conditions? Like if there are specific conditions about driveway maintenance, or snow removal, who makes sure the homeowners actually do that?
Yep, there's a couple ways that happens. One of them is when the client, when the applicant comes back and the work is done, they have to get sign off from us in something called a certificate of compliance when all the work is done. And what we do is we look at all the conditions we've imposed and we kind of go through it like a checklist to see if they've been meeting those, what they've said they were going to do. So that's
Okay.
one place. Another place is our, my esteemed colleague, Brian Bowe, who has his hand raised today. He's really good at spotting difficulties and calling people in and having productive conversations about, hey, look, this can't continue like this. How's it going to change? And third, I just want to say, Scott, not that I don't think this makes for good neighborhood relationships, but neighbors call each other in to Chuck, and they say, I know my neighbor shouldn't be doing this because I know they got a conservation permit. So we've got, you know, very astute neighbors. So go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to talk about that. I think, Scott, your concern at least is a valid one. And the town can do what the town does. In the end, I think it will be up to neighbor relationship. If you notice you are getting some ponding that you weren't getting, and you see that the mouth of the culvert is obstructed or something, then I would imagine the first step would be to talk to the neighbor, whoever that homeowner is, and just to make them aware of it, because you're more likely to see it before they do. And then as a second step, if that doesn't happen, by all means, call the town and we can do what Anika said we're already doing. So, I mean, I agree with you that the long-term maintenance of this, that's a concern. A lot of it will be on your shoulders as being the likely first spotter.
And I also want to comment that should this project go through, and the conditions that we're going to put on this project are temporary conditions and permanent conditions that live on after the work is done. And all of that documentation gets recorded against the deed for that property. So it becomes a legal document. And if the future homeowner isn't familiar with that deed, unfortunately, ignorance of what's attached to their property is not an excuse for their responsibility to hold to it. So, you know, there's that avenue. So there's a number of different ways to do it. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay, yeah. Can I ask one more thing?
Just one more and then we'll move on.
Okay. So it was just to piggyback on another thing that had been mentioned before. I think you talked about it early in this meeting. The tree count. There was questions about the number of trees in the comment. There's one apparently still in the driveway. Is the town satisfied that the tree count of what's being removed and replaced is accurate? Because I know I raised a question earlier in a previous meeting about, I think we're missing trees and stuff, but we square away on the trees here.
I think, well, we have a plan with a tree count with existing trees on it. Now, it doesn't mean it's every single tree. It means it's trees of a minimum girth. You know, so it's not going to be every single sapling. It's going to be trees of a certain size and up, if that helps. But because we want to make sure we capture especially the big ones. The tree, you know, taking down a tree, it's a challenge. It's an issue. It's a major issue, and I appreciate your concerns tonight. I've heard a couple things that kind of address that tonight. One of them is, you know, one commission member asked if a couple of trees cannot be taken down and they can just stay. And another commission member also asked about doing a more varied planting. So, that's my response. I'm going to unmute Martha, ask her to, because she has a question. Go ahead, Martha.
Yeah, the one thing I forgot to mention earlier, I think the erosion control line is listed as being straw wattle, and I think usually Chuck asks for it to be mulch stock. So I would propose that they make the erosion control mulch stock unless Chuck says otherwise.
Oh, and I probably will with this site. So mulch stock works. So just the bigger the construction, the bigger the disturbance, the more erosion control we want. But we're allowed to make those decisions in the field. So by the time we get to that point, I'll let you know. But it's probably going to be silt fence and mulch stock. So both.
Okay, I just want to, so far, right now, what I'm seeing is, you know, I think the Conservation Commission is you know, sees it as an improvement that the house footprint is smaller and moved outside of the 35 foot. Also the driveway, even though it's a challenging situation for that drainage issue and also a challenging situation for snow and access, is also moved as far away from the wetlands as possible, which gets it out of the area where it would require a variance. The house is outside of the 100-foot habitat line that's drawn on my plan. And I think we're with this, possibly with the exception of another look at that riprap outfall and a little bit more specifics on that pipe. I don't think we need much more information. Go ahead, Chuck.
So I don't know where you were going with this. Maybe I should let you. So I made a list of everything that we talked about tonight, and I didn't see anything that couldn't be handled, you know, after the fact. Even if, so Andrew, for example, like a landscape plan, and if the applicant agrees, we could say something like the applicant, prior to the issuance of occupancy or prior to any planting, you know,
has to present and get approval on a landscape.
Present an approval, a planting plan by a certified, you know, landscape architect. I don't think I would go that far, but at least someone that could develop a plan that had those native species in it, to just look at all of the plantings around, everything that's been in there, just so you would be looking at new meetings just for that one thing. So that not only can be held that way, but we've done that in the past. I think the vernal pool was answered correctly. The fact that it's a potential vernal pool, there wouldn't be any difference from what's happening on the site now. I think the benefit would go to the applicant if it wasn't a vernal pool, and we would see, that extension of the house come up. So there was snow storage, the culvert, again, just a detail of the culvert, so we can discuss that and understand that better. But that culvert on the driveway seems to be fairly minor to the rest of the project. And that's what my comments were.
Okay, at this, go ahead, Andrew.
I don't know if I should comment now or later.
Go ahead.
But the math to me, I understand we could do a landscape plan later in a different scenario. For me, and it doesn't sound like all the commissioners agree, but the substantial amount of alteration to the landscape that's being done and what's being proposed are not even close to what I would like to see. So I don't think just doing it after the fact would satisfy me personally. I don't understand why they can't bring a landscape architect to actually why that's like a crazy expectation. It seems reasonable. They're doing a lot here. They could hire a landscape architect to propose a plan that's much better than what's done here. It looks like it was designed by an engineer. And there are a couple of other concerns I have about the invasive species. I would like to see some management of that, not in a 2-year plan, but a 5-year plan. And I would also like to see well, that's pretty much it. I mean, there is the what is that? The underground infiltration. I don't really understand that. It's the technicality, but it seems like it's in the 35-foot zone. It's a permanent structure. I don't know if we're cool with that. No one's mentioned it, but it is a question.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yeah.
I believe that Gio made me aware that for every tree that we take down is a 2-to-1 ratio we have to replant. And I'm pretty sure that we met those requirements. If you guys would prefer us to, do a different landscape plan, I'm all for that. Whatever you guys are, whatever you want, pretty much. But I'm pretty sure that on this plan, Gio has met the requirement for the 2-to-1 replication of those trees.
And I'll speak to that because I'm new. So my understanding is that's the prescriptive thing. If you just want to try to handle it, we'll definitely have a precedent of saying that works. But it's up to our discretion whether or not that works in all scenarios. And to me, that math is a little fuzzy. Removing 26 trees and replacing them with 5 and a bunch of shrubs. It's not going to work for this particular one. So,
Sure. Yeah, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Whatever you want.
Yeah, and just to chime in, Andrew, I see what you're getting at with, especially when you consider not just the cutting of the trees, but also the regrading and the filling. You're essentially changing the landscape of the area between the house and the wetlands. You're adding fill, you're changing ground cover conditions, you're changing plant conditions. So I think where that impact could be reduced and left as natural is always helpful. And leaving as much undisturbed as possible could be helpful. I guess my question for you, Mike, about this is, the grading lines around the house, are they all critically essential and necessary? Or, is it for structural reasons or for leisure reasons or a combination of both?
They could be moved and adjusted during the.
Are you talking about the grading going into the wetlands?
The regrading and the regrading of the back of the house.
Oh, the back of the house.
Like the south side of the house. The south side of the property.
Okay.
Right.
I don't have the plan up on the on my screen right now. I'm not really sure I understand the question. You're concerned with the grading going in the back of on the south side?
To the right.
To the right.
Do you see it goes like 202, 203, 204, and then there's a row of trees?
Yes, towards the wetlands.
Right. So that grading just starts near the driveway there, that riprap outfall, and you could see, it crosses the red line like twice. It just loops all the way around. Like, is all of that regrading essential for the structure for constructing the house?
It can be changed. I think I could be wrong on this, but I think we discussed this at one of the prior meetings where we wanted to kind of keep it more more grading towards the wetlands instead of putting up a wall of some sort, just to keep it like more smooth to go into the wetlands. I think that's where that comes from. And I believe that and Geo has used the correct slope on that as well. Am I understanding that question correctly?
Because, so just by way of explanation, when you take a place that's natural and undeveloped, and you go in and you clear it and you regrade it, there's disturbance, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So you go in, you grade it, you grub it, then you add fill and you regrade it, and then you seed it. And so there's part of me that sort of thinks, beyond of all the area that's regraded, grubbed, regraded, does it all have to be regraded to build the house?
No, it does not have to.
Can any of it just be left? Untouched?
Yes, I believe so.
So from my perspective, especially, inside of that, so for me, part of that effort would counterbalance the taking of the tree habitat. And I'm not saying it's one for one, like there's no math equation in my head. You know what I mean? But when a tree gets taken down, it's loss of habitat, right? So, but it's not just the cutting of the tree, it's the disturbance of the ground as well, because the creatures live on the ground.
Correct. So what you're proposing is, don't disturb that, and that would mitigate the amount of trees that we're going to replant. Is that correct? That's
my perspective. I don't know if Andrew wants to chime in on this, because I heard him make a lot of good points about this earlier. My ask is there anywhere reasonably that, grading doesn't have to be done and the land can be kept in the existing condition?
Yes, the short answer is yes.
Okay. Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're coming from, Nika. When you walk around the site, I mean, altering some of it's not going to be the worst part, not the worst thing in the world. So I'm not opposed to designing it and it doesn't have to be left exactly as it is. I just would like to see a little more effort into within the zone that we're trying to work within to be less engineered and more designed.
Okay. At this point, are there any other questions? Andrew, do you have any other follow-ups, or does anybody else have any last thoughts before we try to move on with either with a motion to continue or a motion to close? I'm not sure where we're at exactly. Chuck?
Just want to make the commission aware that we've gone beyond the 21 days. It's up to the applicant to continue. He can ask to close. I just want to, since Gio's not here, I just felt obligated to let the applicant know, because he may not know and not have the experience of Giovanni.
Okay, so Mike, at this point, hearing the feedback tonight, I think it goes to you representing this project. Do you want to continue, or do you want to ask us to close and vote on this?
I would like to ask to close and vote.
Okay. Chuck, were you going to say so, or?
Yeah, you may close. You don't have to vote for 21 days, same as the last one. So you can close the hearing, and again, you're not going to take any more public comment, and you're not going to ask for any more documentation. But then you'll consider what you have and think about conditions.
Okay. Joe, go ahead.
So just making sure I follow here. So it sounds like if we close tonight, so given the timeline, if the applicant doesn't want us to continue, we don't have the option to continue. I think the main option would be to close. And then given that we've closed, we can't, it sounds like we can't ask for more documentation, but on the other hand, we also probably do want to ask for documentation as part of as conditions, in particular the planting plan and a detail of the inflow and outflow of the driveway drain. I think those are the two bits of information that I'm aware of that we've asked for. We can still ask, we can still close and then reasonably expect to have those things when we vote on this in 2 weeks. Is that a realistic scenario here?
Here's go ahead, Chuck.
So the applicant can say he can deliver those things to us if he wants, but he's not under no obligation because we closed.
Yeah.
So, and you're being not forced to close, but you have to close if that's what the applicant wants. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. We are under obligations to respond in certain timeframes. So. And
at that point, it comes down to the order of conditions.
Right. Well, and also we're voting next time, and while the applicant is not obliged to provide us any more documentation after we close, the applicant has heard what documentation the commission is interested in, and the commission has not yet voted. So I'm guessing that what the applicant will want to do in that situation is give us that information. But I understand that it's not an obligation. So okay, I think I follow. As procedurally complex as it is, I do think I follow.
Can I just say one thing before we go forward? You know, I'm here to work with you guys. You know, I want to make this best for both of us. You know, I want to try to save as much habitat as possible and make this project, you know, better for everyone. I don't want something to happen in the future where it's going to cause problems between the neighbors or whatever. You know, I want to make sure this goes as smoothly as possible, and I just want the commission to be aware of that.
Okay, thanks for that. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
I will move that we close the public hearing on Lot A Main Street next to 1261 Main Street.
I'll second that.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Are
you calling for discussion before we vote, Nika? Or okay, all right. Then in that case, we're voting Joe Carnahan in favor.
Ryan Rowe in favor.
Is it me?
Yeah.
I mean, I would really like to see the vernal pool certified, and that should happen in the public meeting. So I am not in favor. Andrew Drippin.
John Sullivan in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor. Okay. We have closed the public hearing at this point. What does this look like at the next meeting, Chuck? Just a reminder.
And like I said, you can review the information that you have, and you can come up with conditions, or you can review the information you have and decide that you don't have enough to make a decision. But if you're going to deny this project, I need you to deny it based on the regulations, not because the DEP will not support any denials that aren't fact-based.
Yep. 100%. Okay. So, so at this point, thank you, Mike. I think, right? We're moving on to the next hearing.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Correct, Chuck? Have I got that right?
Yeah, we are. And Mike, there was a request. I understand you don't have to do it for a couple of things, but if Gio can reach out to me, or you could reach out to me tomorrow or Monday, that would be great. I'd like to go over the list and see where we stand on that. Okay?
Perfect. Like I said, we're here to help.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Thank you, too. Okay, so at this point, we've got 572 Summer Ave.
Sure. So 572 Summer Ave has continued to May 11th. That happened at the last meeting. And just an update that they did put in an application for a minor project permit for that shed.
Okay. So. Okay. And at this point, we're on to old new business. And actually, Chuck, before we get to old new business, other members of the public who are here.
Yeah, so I think you'd probably want to, I'm just trying to review the list here for a second. And Dave Fazio, we talked about at the last meeting, and he wants to he has that pool and he wanted to move the pool fence closer to the edge of his property. I have the plan available. I don't recognize anyone else. I see Dave and I see iPhone guest. So it would really be just Dave Fazio at this moment.
Okay. And what's the address?
Saying that right? Is it Lila Lane, 99? Let's bring Dave on and I'll find a plan and we'll do it that way. Is that good?
Sure. I just don't see it on the agenda.
This is a public information request that he's coming in to get your advice. So it didn't have time to make it on the agenda. Okay. Okay.
We have a guest speaker then.
Guest, yes. And then you can decide what to do about it once you hear what he's asking. Okay.
Mr. Fazio to unmute and introduce himself. Okay. And you will pull up a plan, Chuck?
I will.
Thank you.
Good evening, guys.
Good evening.
So David Fazio from 118 Lila Lane.
Okay.
Yeah, you gotta keep, I'm still looking for the plans.
Oh yeah, no problem. So, so I spoke with you guys, oh geez. It's probably leading into, so it's probably end of summer leading into the fall on a pool project at 118 Lila Lane in the backyard. So, you know, we had an agreement, and as part of that plan, basically the pool was going to be enclosed by a fence. So this change here is going to be basically relocating the back portion of that fence that would go around the pool and have it further back on in the yard along the edge of lawn. So it wasn't an official delineation of where the wetland starts, but we had a meeting on site, and we all came to an agreement that that was, you know, that would be the start of the wetland. So this new fence location would be moving to that spot, and there's also some shrubs that we agreed were going to be planted by this area. So that is unchanged. It would really just be the fence, which would be an open fence. So it's like a black aluminum fence that's open, that would be behind these bushes. actually chucked that one.
I
That's,
got it.
One?
that's not the latest one I sent you. Chuck, I sent you one where it showed, I had some red lines showing where the
Oh, you might not be.
fence.
Let me just call up the one I'm on now, right? Hold on one second.
No problem.
So would this be a minor plan change?
Yes, that's in talking with Chuck. That's that seemed to be what we would be having this be. And I think really the main importance of this is I've got 2 young kids and I have a dog now. So the current plan, the yard would not be fenced in. So it's really
Does that work?
driven. Yes, that's correct. Thanks.
Great.
Thanks, Chuck. So really the main purpose is just for a safer environment for my family. So by locating the fence in these locations, I would be able to fence off the backyard. We're going to be spending a lot more time in the backyard. So by doing this, I can close off the backyard. We have a lot of wildlife, coyotes like to visit in the area. And where this is located, they'll still be able to traverse through the yard. They just wouldn't be able to come into the yard where my family would be.
Chuck, can you zoom in, please?
Good thing.
And so to be clear, this fence would be at that line and the shrubs would be still, there'd be a bed of shrubs, native plantings that would be in front of that fence.
So the area to the right, the dashed line to the right is a easement.
So the dash line, that dash line currently is an existing fence.
The solid and then 2 dashes.
Yes.
The fence.
Yeah, that's an existing fence.
But it says 30-foot wide utility easement.
Yep.
Chuck, is that for stormwater?
Yeah, there's a drain. There's a drain pipe that goes into the culvert that's in the back there. So
right.
As part of this plan too, and I didn't show that, but I do want to have gates that would be so that in case there was a need for access, so it would be, there would be gates in the back and as well as on the side of the house there, a little further up.
Chuck, does this have to be passed through engineering based on that easement or no?
The fence in the easement exists. The fence being proposed is not in the easement.
Correct. It's the proposed fence that don't they need? It's one thing to have a fence, the fence that goes page up, page down, that is not red and heavy black line. Does not.
Oh, so you see where it says drainage easement. So you're saying that's the easement. So as part of the discovery process of this application, that this plan is from the original build out, and that drainage easement is much bigger than what was required at the end. That's why where it says just above that top of bank drainage swale, that's actually what was needed, but that historical artifact from the old plan has remained on here. So that's no longer an easement. I did talk to Ryan Percival about this, and he agreed that that's not where the drainage easement is.
Oh, so the 30-foot wide utility easement line is not actually.
We're not talking about that. We're talking about this is an easement here. Okay.
That is one of the things.
But this is not a drainage easement. So this fence, being in back of where it says drainage easement right here, is not in an easement.
Okay, so
my understanding. but this is over
Okay.
here at drainage easement.
So the red line, does engineering need to review that red line that's underneath the number 865?
It's been our policy that if a fence goes into the easement, then they should run it past Ryan. I feel like Ryan's going to say fine because I already asked him. But that's a good second, a second request for
A lot
Ryan.
of easements. There's a lot of
Yeah.
drainage on this plan.
Yeah.
So I've taken over too much time. I want to open it up to the commission, other commission members to raise their hand and ask questions about this. And until somebody does, I'll just ask straight up, what kind of fence? And then I'll ask Martha to unmute. What kind of fence are you proposing?
So the fence that I'm proposing, it's a black aluminum fence. So it's, it's open. And I actually included an image. I sent Chuck a letter, and on the back page of that letter, I included an image of the type of fence. So it would be, a 6 foot fence with, some posts in the middle, but it's open. We wanted it to be open.
So it's small bars. It's like a
small bars. Yep.
Like
Yep.
kind of spaced 3 or 4 inches or something.
Yes. Yeah.
The 6 foot high, small bars. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to find that, but yeah, it's so as far as the being open and allowing for animal passage, this type of fence, it seemed like the gaps between the upright rails were, like 3.5 inches, and there was openings underneath. I mean, it's like a picket fence, I guess, with every other picket removed, but instead of pickets, they're using pipe. That was my recollection.
Yeah, it's an aluminum.
And
it's made of aluminum. And I think the main thing is small animals, like we have turtles, obviously rabbits, and I think they'll be able to go in and out. But I think the main thing really is the coyotes. They're active in the backyard in our area, and we have a small dog and again 2 young kids. So makes us feel a little bit better having that barrier in between. So that's one of the main reasons why we'd like this fence.
okay. John, go ahead.
Yeah, so on the left side of the picture we've got up here, there's the red line for the new fence, and there's also another one of those thick black lines for existing fence. Are we building the new fence right up next to an existing fence, or am I reading that wrong?
So on the left side, so that red line, so already where that red line starts on the left side, as part of the plan, we're already going to have a fence that's going to be on the property line. So that red line, in the middle of the page extending back, that is extending that fence to that back corner.
Okay, so there's not
Does that
currently
answer
a
your
fence
question?
there.
Correct.
Is there? Okay.
There's currently not a fence there. Correct.
Okay. So what is that dotted black line?
I believe that's just the property line.
That's just the property line. Okay.
Yeah.
And then trying to get my bearings on this, am I right that the red line that we've been talking about that kind of runs across the back of the yard, is that on the south end of the property?
Yes.
Okay, so that's and the fence is not, there's big spaces between the posts, so we're not worried about having shade over all those new plants that are going in right along the south end and stopping them from growing. Is that correct? Okay.
That's correct. Yeah.
And that's what I've got.
Yeah, And honestly, I'm open to another fence suggestion, but one thing that my wife and I, we wanted it to be open, you know, because we like to see the vegetation in the back. We didn't want to barricade it with like a stockade or a vinyl fence. So we wanted it to be open, but we're open to, you know, other suggestions that you guys might have.
Okay. Brian, I know you had your hand raised and then you lowered it. So.
Yeah, I mostly I'm thinking about the fence. So without seeing a picture, this basically is bars that are close enough together to keep in a small dog and yet keep the killer coyotes out.
Dave, do you have a picture you can send me? Is that, or did you?
It's, you know, it's on the.
Brian, I think we saw a fence like he's describing, and I think I saw the picture of his fence when we were at the house that had put lights on their fence in the backyard and they want to put in a swimming pool. It's that kind of fence, thin metal vertical bars.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, Chuck, on that plan that you brought up, if you scroll the, oh no, that says one of one. I know I sent you a document that has this plan, and then there's a second page to it that includes an image of the fence. But it sounds like you guys seem to have an understanding of that type of fence. But yes, it's open with you know, some square posts that come down from the top and bottom.
Yeah, 572 Summer Ave, which we just visited, was that kind of fence. And they had strung Christmas lights along the top of it and put some spotlights on it.
Yep, I remember that. That was to discourage coyotes as well. The
Right.
lighting, yeah. Okay, and one last question, not necessarily a conservation question, but so by removing the fence nearer the pool, okay, and having it back at the edge of the property, so now there's no protection around the pool itself. You have any concerns about child safety from that change in perspective?
Yeah, so that's something we do have. So we're going to be fencing in the yard itself. So that'll continue. As far as the yard being a little bit more open, you know, we have landscaping that's still going to be continued to kind of be around the pool. Not to say that that's a fence, but you know, it's just something that we're going to have to, you know, be careful with you know, our children as well as any sort of visitors we have that come into the yard. But
yeah, as I said, that's not a conservation question. That was a curiosity question. I think I'm okay for now, Anika.
Okay, thanks. Andrew?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm just confused a little bit. I wasn't here when the project was approved. So the current fence proposal is that kind of bubbly fence that has a little turn to the north, right? And it's like
correct,
right next to the existing.
Yep, it's got it almost mimics like the fence in posts. Yes, where Chuck was just drawing. Yep.
This was something that was talked about with the commission over the late summer, and you guys both agreed that it made sense to put two fences right next to each other like that. Yeah, I mean, but it takes a particular turn, which I don't understand why. And I was trying to find the meeting minutes to see if there was some like justification for why the fence is doing what it did in its original design. Because
Andrew, are you mistaking the erosion control barrier for a fence?
I could be, yes.
Oh, yes. No, that's the erosion control.
So only fence we have right now is this aluminum. Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
So the only fence right now would be, so there's a fence along the driveway. So on the left side, next where it says 2.5 story on the left side, there's a fence that goes there.
That's
And
existing,
then
yep.
yep. And then it goes, no, that's going to be new.
Oh,
yeah,
on the
so-
driveway side, it's new, yep.
Yep. So all new on the left side. So currently there's no fencing on the left side of the property. So
Got it.
the fence that goes along the across the driveway and then up the property line, and then a right angle. So in the back around the pool, and then to close it off on the right side of the pool. So that's it currently. So if we were to position the fence where the red lines are now located, the fencing that would be around the pool would then be removed.
Okay. So from a conservation concern, when they're installing it, the fence, we could put like something in the order of conditions to make sure there's, I don't know, I mean, because you want to make sure there's no damage. And it's all, from looking at the aerial photo, it's all grass back there, right?
Yeah, it's an existing lawn that's back there.
Okay.
And that edge of lawn is really so it's in the edge of the lawn, and then there's some current shrubs that are there now that are going to be replanted around the pool area, and new native plants are going to be planted within that bed.
So in the space between the pool and the new fence, there's going to be some new plantings? Because I don't see them on the drawing, but is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So all around the pool.
Oh, I see the little guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's all going to continue. And then basically from the 35 offset back is lawn, is existing lawn.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, again, I was just trying to look at the minutes just to get a gauge of the conversation. I mean, I'd like to see some more plantings rather than just that little line between the backyard there and the fence. It'll also give you more, just because you're in the 25-foot zone, right? No disturb zone, like entirely in that area. So in that zone that's in the 25 no disturb, we should be seeing more native planting than just that line along the fence line. So we've had this conversation before, but I'm fine with adding the fence back there instead of around the pool, but I'd like to see more plantings than just what you have currently drawn.
There is behind that, there's a lot of native planting that's behind there. There's trees.
That's the wetland, yes.
Yeah. And so, part of the conditions of the plan is I'm going to provide plantings that are going to go along this area, but I have a list of all the native plantings. So I'll be selecting those, and I'll be providing kind of a map, I guess, or a legend to show you what will actually be planted in that area.
I'd be clear. I like to see a 10-foot buffer between the fence and your yard, going toward your yard, being planted with native plants. I mean, the 10 foot are arbitrary. Ideally, it would be 25 feet per our regulations, but it seems like this was already agreed upon, that was okay. But since now that you're asking to put a fence back there, specifically, I personally, that's fine, but just replant that backyard, a 10-foot zone with native plants. And I'm open to talking about that, but that's something I'd like to see.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew. I'm going to go to Martha and then John and then Joe.
Okay. First question, when we approved your swimming pool, we asked that a neighbor remove the yard waste behind their row of arborvitaes. Can you tell me if that's happened yet?
It has, yes. It's all been removed and cleaned up.
Good. Okay. Because if you put this fence in, it would make it that much harder to get that yard waste back out.
Yeah.
Okay. Glad to hear that. And then I am very concerned about taking the fence away from around the swimming pool and moving it to the back of the yard in terms of the safety of the small children and the swimming pool. I don't particularly object to fencing the yard to protect the children, but I think you're risking drowning children instead of coyote attack children. So I would prefer to see both fences rather than only one fence. And, you know, as a parent who had a pool in my backyard and small children, I really liked having the pool separated from the play area so that I didn't have to be watching the children like a eagle all the time if they were in the backyard. At the very least, I would like to see you put one of those winter covers on the pool that elephants can stand on, so that at least for several months of the year, the pool is protected from kids falling in and drowning. But I don't see any reason to remove the fence around the pool just to put it around the back. And I do agree with Andrew that I like the idea of protecting that drainage area with some more native plantings. I'm not sure I would say 10 feet because I think the policy is that the existing lawn edge is what we can go with, but you know, maybe put some of those shrubs on either side of the fence, move the fence in maybe a foot and put some shrubs behind and some in front to kind of ease that border into the native plantings. So those are my two thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Another hand raised. There was, I'm sorry, I was losing track.
Mine was raised, but I put it down because I think Martha said my thoughts as far as a larger buffer in the back is nice, but indeed we you know, the previous you know, agreement was to keep the lawn where it is, you know, and that the additional planting was going to go in landscaping around the pool by and large, and the existing bed along the back of the property.
John, did you have a comment?
No, actually, I forgot to put my hand down after my last questions.
Andrew, before I'll acknowledge you in just a second. I just wanted to comment, just chime in that, you know, the placement of that fence behind proposed, it looks like there was a line of green dots right up against that fence. So it looked already like you were putting that fence behind proposed plantings. If that fence can be moved up and additional plantings just be placed, and the fence can then start protecting the natural space behind it. And you know, I want to chime in with what Andrew said about considering some additional plantings. And you know, right now you're proposing to put the fence right on the wetland line, and it would be, that's, you know, so you're asking for direct disturbance right on the wetland line. I would like to see that moved uphill, closer towards the house. You know, because when you put in a fence, you're doing digging, you're putting, I mean, we're saying we typically don't, is this right, Chuck? We typically don't call fences structures. My whole concept of a structure is like totally alphabet soup right now. But it is going to be a disturbance, and doing a disturbance right at that wetland line, to me, where it could be avoided and just pushed back 5 to 10 feet, compared to the rest of the size of, you know, of what's available there is not a huge deal from my perspective. So I just wanted to comment on that and then pass it over to Andrew.
Can I just answer those two questions?
Yeah.
So we do allow fences right up to the wetland line. And this was the policy before I got here, and it has continued while I was here. And it goes on to say, as long as they're not cutting down any trees to put in the fence. So I guess we're not investigating why the lawn is at the edge of the wetland. but in those cases, when there is lawn there, and sometimes we even allow it in the woods, as long as they're going around the trees, we're allowing these fences in place. And I just wanted to remind the commission that this, where it says edge of lawn BVW, that was never reviewed by a wetland scientist. It's a very conservative line, and it's definitely not the edge of the wetland.
So just so conservative meaning you think the wetland's actually further back away from their property?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not familiar with this property aside from the aerial photos. So is that what you're saying, Chuck?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. It's several feet back. I don't think I can remember at this point, but I remember a mulch bed kind of being the mark that we walked off of there. And I think the commission went out and reviewed it. Maybe someone remembers better than me, but it's not the edge of the wetland line. So.
But it's
Yeah.
drawn as a 25 foot off. It's drawn as if it's the wetland, and there's the 35. It's just confusing. But I have to go with what's on the drawing, not knowing what's on the site. So I would like to see what Nika said. Just move the fence towards the house, maybe 5 feet. Keep the plantings where they are. If you don't want to put the plantings inside the fence. Again, this is my opinion, but yeah, I know we have precedent that I'm not familiar with, but from looking at the drawing, it's right on the edge, and yeah.
Yeah, Andrew, you're hearing that it's not. I had this with the commission the last time, but it's fine. That's not the edge of the wetland. Your administrator is telling you that, And the other thing I want to just remind everybody is that we cannot vote on this. This came in as citizens open forum. So you need to decide, the only decision you can make tonight is what to give David instructions to come back as a minor plan change, an RDA or whatever. And then we would have an opportunity to look at the wetland line again. And get some, and Andrew, just so the reason why this came in is because there's so much different distance between the edge of the property and the pool. It really didn't need to be delineated, because whether it was 35 feet or 40 feet or 50 feet, it was in that zone where it was outside of the 35-foot line. I think it's extended a little bit based on what I'm looking at now, but that was our original thought. There was plenty of room back there, and it was a way for the homeowner to save a little bit of money. And the commission typically reviews these easy delineations. If that changes, I'm okay with that. I'll just let everybody know that, notices of intent now need delineated wetland lines. But I think that's where this was going in the first place.
Okay.
But that's enough explanation. Thanks.
I'll recognize Joe. Thanks, Chuck.
Thanks. So just to give Andrew some perspective here, and since I think Andrew likes looking at the aerial photographs as much as I do, if you look back at the 1998 ones, if I recall, I don't have them up in front of me now, but it struck me because this was a relatively recently developed area. So you can actually see when there were no trees here whatsoever, when the subdivision was first constructed. You can see that there was basically a constructed area for water in the middle of these houses. And so this is in some sense artificial, at least in origin. It's very natural now. We need to protect it. But if there are things about the shape or structure, the fact there's a very steep bank up to there's yard and then a very abrupt bank into the wet area, I believe that is a result of the history of how this wetland came to exist. Rather than, so if it seems unusual, it's because it is of the circumstances of how it came to exist, I think. So
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm looking and you're right. It's not much of a wetland in its own way.
Yeah, I mean it is now, but now you can see the history literally in black and white because the old pictures are.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to try to guide us towards towards a decision on what we're going to recommend to the resident who's patiently waited through all this and listened to us and responded to us. Go ahead, Martha.
I would say it sounds like a minor project plan change to me and does not need to come back as a notice of intent.
Based on
that it's just a fence. It's not adding any other structures other than a fence.
Okay. Does anybody else want to comment before we take a vote on that concept? No. Okay. Chuck, did you want to say something?
You would need to you need to second. Someone needs to second that if you want to vote.
We needed to make a motion as to on that idea. I'm not sure. I think you expressed yourself, Martha, but I don't think it was exactly a motion. Am I wrong?
So I'll make a motion that we treat this as a minor plan change.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Nick, do you want any discussion or should we go to vote?
If there's any discussion, please raise your hand or unmute and speak up. Andrew?
What's the alternative? I mean, I'm sorry, David, to bore you with this, but.
So what I'm happy to explain. So it's either a minor plan change or a request for determination of applicability or a notice of intent.
Okay, got it. That I know. So if we're saying it's not a minor thing, that then he would then have to go in for the notice of intent. Okay, I just had to process that. Sorry.
Or the in between could be the RDA. There is a halfway between. Minor plan change does not need to come back to us.
Right.
The other two do need to come back in front of us. We've all given our opinions and he's heard what we think. The question is, does he have to come back and take up more of our meeting time to hear another conversation about it as an RDA? Or do we let Chuck make the decision and not have to put it back into another meeting?
Got it.
That was why I suggested we've all given Mr. Fazio our thoughts on the matter, and maybe we can turn it over to Chuck to make the decision.
Got it.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, okay, so there's a motion and there was a second and there's no more discussion. So why don't we go to a vote?
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Martha Moore
in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor. David, we've approved, we've given Chuck authorization to approve this as a minor plan change. Thanks for coming in and spending time with us, explaining it to us, and
Good luck.
And good luck.
And David, I will want to see that you've reviewed this with Ryan Percival or some engineer and that you've received permission to have that corner in the easement.
No problem.
Okay.
That's no problem. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
You too.
Thanks.
Chuck, who is the other person? Do you know?
Raising the hand. Let's find out. Hello, iPhone. Can you let us know who in any business you have with the commission?
Hello?
Yes, hi.
Don Gensler with 56 Freight Coach Road project.
Okay, that's in there too. So that's DOA for the Great Coach Road. I think there was some information that came up about this project. Since you're on an iPhone, I'm not gonna try to do the video. Hold on a second.
The last meeting, there was just we decided, I think it was Andrew and Joe and a couple others expressed how we were going to go for a variance. We decided not to go for a variance. They suggested just cutting the deck on that 35-foot line. So that's what I discussed with the homeowners, and we decided just to stay right at that 35-foot line, clip the corner of that deck. And then the other two things that were on was just showing the dry well for the gutter water collection on that corner and the stepping stones on top of the grass for the traffic outside of that exit door.
So is that other information available? Because I don't see the stepping stone. Maybe that's the dry well right there.
Yeah, dry well, that circle on the corner, and
Yeah.
the stepping stones, those two rectangles coming.
Oh, right here. Okay. Is there a larger plan that, I know that you sent me this kind of last minute, but
Yeah, the last.
is this on a regular plan?
This is just off of the original, off the one we had for the last meeting.
Okay.
I just blew up that section and put that, showed how we were gonna clip that corner. I know that's what they were asking or suggesting the last meeting.
Okay, so Chuck, at this point, is this just additional information that's come in?
Yeah, so I think that we reviewed this during our meeting, and I had written in the determination, waiting for this update, but I did want to bring it to the commission to show you that we're not expecting the variance. So I don't think a vote is needed. I think we did that, unless I'm mistaken. So this is just more information for the commission, and I can send out the determination now that this is in. I think this was received today, right? Is that, you sent it to me kind of later today?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So I just figured, why not? We had a lot of open spots on the agenda.
Filling our time. I love it. So some more information. This just gets added to the documentation of the project.
It gets added to the file, but it was also that piece that we were missing to issue, and now it's come in. I don't know if there's any questions. If not, I mean, this is not a notice of intent. This is an RDA, so it's kind of the same procedure. Doesn't happen. We just close. We don't really issue with RDAs. So
it looks fine to me. If anybody else on conservation has questions about it, otherwise, it looks, staying out of the 35-foot is always helpful. So, okay.
Yep.
I guess that's it.
That's it. Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have some other business we need to get to.
Yeah. So number 6, the top thing on the agenda was, so you know about the community garden, and we're moving forward, and the commission has approved the community garden at Matera cabin complex. And one of the things that needs to happen is the application process. Each gardener will receive a gardener's agreement, and inside the gardener's agreement, a signature is needed. So it's either me or the town manager, and it was decided that the town manager may not want to sign all these gardeners' agreements as they come in. So we're asked to vote to approve that I am authorized by the Conservation Commission to sign the gardener's agreement document for the Matera cabin.
Now, are these every individual small? So
Every individual gardener's agreement has to be signed.
Okay.
That's
It's-
what we heard from town council, and that won't be changed. So
Okay.
yeah,
And any questions from conservation members? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve Chuck to sign the gardener's agreement documents for Matera Community Garden.
sure. You should say, or the conservation administrator, just so it's just in case.
So it's not just Chuck.
Yeah. Well, then you'd only have to do it once.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the conservation administrator to sign the gardener's agreements for us.
Second that.
There's a motion and a second. Let's vote on it.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Andrew Dribbin in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Nika Scanlon in favor. You have more authority now. Go to town, Chuck.
It's not, yeah.
So what's next after that? We already went through this 56 grade coach.
I don't know if you want an update on the town forest plan. I would just say that, is it the 30th, Brian? There's like a town.
Yes, April 30th.
Yeah,
April 30th.
April 30th, there's a day that's still being planned. There are things being discussed, such as work in some areas by volunteers, such as perhaps guided walks, perhaps a bird walk from Dave Williams. That's all in planning. But there is going to be something happening on April 30th.
That sounds awesome. Looking forward to hearing more about that. And also,
and unless I get in trouble here on the home front, there is also going to be some planned pulling of invasives. Always a good time.
And I think also they were talking about some, maybe trying to get somebody to paint the
Yes.
water pumping station.
And they have somebody, I'm almost positive he's not going to do all four sides, but a mural of at least one side of the cinder block building at the end of the causeway.
that sounds cool.
And I think besides pulling invasives, my notes from their town forest committee meeting was the Pine Ridge Trail was where they were thinking of building or repairing the bridge there and fixing kiosks and signage in various places.
So I believe this was discussed. It can't be building a new bridge, depending on how close it is to the wetlands, because the structure, I believe that Jane from DPW believes that it's repair of some existing structure, and she was going to go off and double check that. Chuck, have you heard anything about her double checking?
So, so that repair that the Trails Committee is talking about is happening. And I mean, I think, Brian, you're going to be helpful with this because you said there's some bridges in this area here. You go up Stroud Ave and you walk through the water treatment plant area and along this trail here. So this is the Pine Ridge Trail, and that's the trail that is going to be on. So it's the second bridge is going to be repaired. Do you recognize that spot?
So I believe what that is, if you go in that way, there's a so-called Boy Scout stairs. These are stairs that were built by the local troop. And you go up the stairs and then down a hill. At the bottom of the hill, there are a couple of sections of boardwalk. And so it sounds like that's
second.
Yeah, okay. And I haven't been there in a few months, but it was in need of repair the last time I went there. So that would make sense.
So I can tell you what the project is. It says the section has two outer floor joists but no inner floor joists, and it spans 4 feet. So they want to take off all the decking. They want to put in 2 center floor joists and space them 16 inches on center, whatever they're going to do, spacing them. And then they're going to put all the decking back on. So that would qualify as a repair, and that's what they want to do.
Yeah, I was afraid they were going to extend it because the ends are a little bit damp at this point, but I'm glad it's purely a repair.
And today we also, oh,
How
go
does
ahead.
this location compare to the Alligator Alley Eagle project that came in last summer? Is it more or less the same bridge,
No.
or is it completely different?
It's different. If you were to follow that trail further, you would eventually come to the beginning of the so-called Alligator Alley, but it's not truly nearby.
Okay.
I mean, you're not going to be on a stronger hike to get there, a hunger strike to get there, but it's not nearby.
So is Alligator Alley the one that's marked boardwalk on this map, perhaps? Joe's nodding his head.
Yes.
And then the place where they're going to repair is more where it says Pine Ridge Trail.
I don't know where it is. Yeah.
So yeah, basically you go through the compost center, and where it tees, you go left, and you take your first right, and you follow the red up the Boy Scout stairs. And at the bottom of that first hill, there's 2 sections of boardwalk, maybe 30 feet apart, 40 feet apart.
Okay. I think the stairs are near where it says P for Pine Ridge Trail, where the topo lines are really close together.
I agree with you.
Okay. So then the boardwalk would be near where it says ridge or trail.
Closer to trail, maybe even the end of trail.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to just update you on this section here, the Cranberry Bog, Cranberry Dam. So we had a site walk this morning. The DPW will be dumping 2 yards of 3/4 inch stone, maybe 50 feet from where that repair is going to happen. And that's where it was dumped the last time, when it was 2 or 3 truckloads to build this Cranberry Dam. So I'm not concerned about kind of creating a new area. This area exists, and so it'll have some more gravel in it or fresh gravel in it. So me and Brian went out there. So what the thought is the 2 yards would cover 50 feet at 2 inches, and they're going to keep it away from the edges. And they probably needed like 2.5 yards, but we wanted to keep it less to make sure that there wasn't this ability to overfill it to 4 inches, which would go over the banks. So you're going to see a pile of 2-inch stone out there at some point before the ground thaws. So that's that.
Okay. Is that because of the tree cutting, or is it totally unrelated?
Unrelated. The Trails Committee felt that there was like kind of a pathway that fills up with water, and people are doing backflips to get around it. The bog walkway is essentially 3 feet wide, and there's really no way to get around it. You're either on the very edge or you're walking through the puddles.
Right.
So,
and that was built originally, call it 8-9 years ago, when my kids were going to that school. The kids helped bring the gravel down and put it in originally. Over time, it's either been pressed into the ground or kicked away or whatever, but now it is very muddy.
Mhm.
So refilling the area where the gravel already was is what the plan is. And it is fairly constrained. There's actually a wooden barrier there on the trail holding it up. So just before, there's another bridge that crosses the stream there. So yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So yeah, I think both those are repairs, and they don't need
Okay.
much. So,
Um,
and then the last thing, Martha, you can't make the meeting on the 15th at the town forest meeting.
Right. I would prefer if somebody else is willing to volunteer to observe that meeting, because I have, my daughter will be in town and I'd like to spend the evening with her and not at yet another meeting.
so that's next Tuesday at 7.
Right.
They're
By
gonna- And they're going to be discussing the town forest, tree work and other stuff. So it would be helpful if somebody can make it.
I'd also like to make sure that on the Ridge Trail where they did the red pine cutting, that day of April 30th, they definitely remove the tree limbs from that potential vernal pool area. So that's one of the requests. Now, I'd like to go to that meeting, but I would also like one of the commission members to go. Just seems to work out to get your point across. I'm not sure how long is the meetings usually, an hour?
a lot shorter than ours. When they were planning the tree cutting, they tended to run till 9, but I've been to some of their meetings that ended by 8.
So in the absence of anybody else jumping up, I'd be happy to go with it.
Virtual meeting, yeah, okay.
Thank
I
you,
mean,
Brian.
it's going to be on here in the other room anyway, so I might as well sit in on it.
Ah, that's right.
Yeah.
There you go. Can't get away from it.
Nope, can't escape.
Well, if they're planning for the cleanup day, everybody was told that they're going to be cleaning up. It's either going to be the company or the DPW or the town forest committee that's going to clean up. Maybe even, trails committee too.
Hey,
So I'd
Chuck,
like to see some of that cleanup happen.
Chuck, talking about pulling the brush out of that potential vernal pool, the depression to the right of what actually looks like a vernal pool. You any concerns about a lot of people tromping in there to pull those branches out? I mean, if
Yeah.
it is a potential vernal pool, is there some special way that should be handled?
Yeah, you can just, I think 2 people could do it. I just think it needs to be on their list. And as long as that's the only activity in that area, it should be fine.
So we should look for lightweight volunteers, basically, right?
Yeah.
And would people, I haven't seen where the branches are, would people need to be walking into the water in order to pull the branches out, or can they reach them from the shore? Because I know of a source of hip waders if we need them.
No, it's a dry area, but it's a depression that meets up with the area that's usually filled with water. And I think the plan would be just to scatter what's in there a little bit. I'm not even sure if we need a chainsaw, but I know that the Trails Committee has a brand new battery operated chainsaw.
Yeah, I don't think, from what I remember when we looked at it during the cutting the town forest, I don't remember there being big tops of trees or anything. I think it's truly branches that the logger didn't know shouldn't go in there, and so they went in there.
Right. So that should help. And then we just scatter those around the hillside would be fine.
Okay, that's good to know.
Okay. What's next?
Yeah, I just wanted one final comment. Does anyone, I'm going to assume Brian's going, maybe he's not, I'm not sure, but who from the commission is going to show up on the 30th for that, on that day for the town forest?
And on April 30th, that's yeah, I can't sign up for pretty much anything between now and middle of April, but April 30th, actually, yes, I'm interested.
Yeah, I'm assuming I'll be there somewhere.
Okay.
There are certain pressures to be drafted for certain parts of it, but time will tell. See where I end up.
Yeah, I'm feeling like I'm available too. I'd like to watch the be on top of that vernal pool situation, but also kind of make sure that the repairs are being done. Help those guys out also.
Yeah, my assumption is that I'd want to be there by the vernal pool. I don't want to actually do any work that would ruin the whole image, but to be there and kind of see what's happening and maybe suggest some things.
All right, great.
I also wanted to go, but are you concerned about a quorum, Chuck?
I am not. I just wanted to, my reason for bringing it up is because I'd like to see the commission. I was just wondering, I just like these town events. It's important for us to have a present there, and I just wanted to just bring it up to make sure that everybody knew that it was the time and the date, and there are things to do. Someone could lead a walk if they wanted to.
Hey, Chuck, do you think it'd be worth us putting together some kind of a conservation commission oriented sign that could be up in the playing fields at Wood End where the walks start, just saying basically a lot of what's on the annual report, right? That upfront part where it's kind of an overview of what conservation does. Is there any value to that, you think?
Is there other signage up? Do you mean just for that day, or?
Yeah, just
Okay.
for the day. I
Are
mean,
other people doing that also, other groups, or is it just?
I
the only
don't
one?
know. I don't care. I have no problem with us leading, but I can imagine us putting something on the sign going into the town forest itself. Just
Yeah, why don't we make up some laminated signs with some, with some information on it? This is a potential vernal pool. This is the Cranberry Bog Dam. The values, something like that. It seems like walk through it and then come up with some language on a few laminated signs might be good.
Why don't we put this particular, why don't we put a couple of town forest items on the next agenda? And go ahead, Joe.
I was just going to say, if this is the same as the, so that was, I guess, in mind, this sounds awfully like the town forest anniversary celebration last year. And it makes perfect sense to me. That was a successful event. Why do we have to wait for even numbered birthdays of the town forest to have it? It's a good idea. Do it every spring. And at that event, I do know the Climate Advisory Committee had a table. I think the Trails Committee probably had a table. So yeah, I think assuming that they do something similar, I think we should have a table.
As a table up in the Wood End playing field.
Right, exactly, at the Wood End playing field.
Yeah, that makes sense. A good idea.
Yep.
Well, that would be a great question at the town forest meeting. What's up there? Isn't this the Earth Day event? Isn't this their Earth Day event?
Well, and another way that conservation in the past used to have a good amount of outreach in the community and mingling and, just talking to people and just being there in case people had a little question was Friends and Family Day. That used to be on in the Birch Meadow complex a number of years back. But because of COVID, that's fallen away.
No, it's back this year. If you guys want to do that, I can sign you up.
Well, that's good to hear. So,
but you got to act quickly.
Well,
I suspect.
If anybody has any ideas for what they think would be important and useful to be on that table, whether it's on a laminated sign, whether it's a map that we would hand out, people could carry it with them when they walk through. Any ideas you have, if you want to forward that to me, I'd be happy to try and collate something.
Okay. Brian, for Andrew and Carl, who are not on the meeting anymore, if you could send out an email about that to everybody.
Okay.
I don't think that breaks open meeting law. This is just a community outreach situation we're trying to communicate about.
Makes sense to me.
I do want to touch on other agenda items, Chuck, and see what else. There's a whole lot of old new business. Is there anything we can get to tonight and take off the list? I know the next item on my list was budget discussion with Joe.
There are a couple of other there are two addresses on there, the determination of applicability for 35 Pittman and the order of conditions for 34 Deborah. Is there anything we need to discuss for those two first?
Pittman and Deborah, that's right. We didn't discuss the DOA and the OOC for those.
Chuck.
Andrew's
Chuck?
having technical issues. He's trying to log back in.
Am I missing? I don't see.
Andrew,
Yeah, I don't see him yet. Did someone let him in?
he said he's trying to log back in. He's having technical issues, but let's.
Oh, here we go. Yeah. Okay.
So Chuck, 35 Pittman, the determination. Is there anything we need to follow up on that?
So just to explain the agenda, the DOA, so old and new business just means, so when the commission issues it and closes and issues or closes with a RDA, it gets dropped down to old and new business for the commission to understand that that DOA is being written and sent to the applicant. It's not really a discussion item. If you want to discuss it, that's fine. So the order of conditions, same. So you could just drop through all that stuff.
Okay.
But it's
when do you
just
think we're back on those? Maybe by
what?
When are we going to hear back on those? Do you think by the next meeting or
on those what?
On the DOAs and the order of conditions.
You said you sent it to them for review. I assume after that it comes back to us for final.
No. That's only on there, which seems to be confusing everyone. That's only on there to show you the next step after you approve. Your job is done. I'm just saying that these things are going to be sent out to the commission. When they drop off that list, they have them and it's complete.
Okay.
I mean,
so it's just informational on the agenda.
Exactly.
Great.
It's not to be.
So are there any things on the old new business, Chuck, that we do need to hear from you about?
From me, no, I don't think so. I think you're right. There is a lot of stuff there. And we have the violations. We have, Armor Development, Jim Castellano. These things are spring things. And then we have the COCs. Some of these ones like Dement, Hughes, and Hangstrom, they could be dropped off the agenda. I haven't heard from any of those people about their projects. And I think Martha let me know that on Small Lane, some of the plants weren't even planted. And I know that one of those houses is up for sale.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let's get them off the agenda.
And then the fee discussion, that has to do with Small Lane. And what we really need to do is look at all of our regulations and open those up. But if we wanted to take on the fees to try to, try to get those fees embedded into the regulations with some standing, it would be better, because I guess what we were told was, where did you come up with these fees? And how did you come up with, how did you come up with that amount for these fees? Those just don't exist. The answers to those two questions don't exist. So, and I think some of that comes from the fact that you can't go and pull another town and get their fees and then adopt them for your own. And I think some of that happened back before my time. And then I think we updated these once when I was here, and I know that's exactly what we did.
Yeah, I would love to see conservation go through their regulation review. But at the same time, I know that's a very big ask of any. So I'm not sure. I don't know, Chuck, if you have a sense of what's coming down the pipe in the next meetings. But
So-
one of
Yeah, so no, I think we're pretty free for a while.
if we do have a slight lull, what I would like to do is schedule almost like a meeting at Matera Cabin, or even over Zoom. I know we have Zoom available until the end of the governor's order, but just dedicate one particular meeting to talking about how we operate and how we can operate better, and just to discuss how we work as a group and, ways to improve. I've been wanting to sort of, and just literally talk about conservation that has nothing to do with a particular hearing. So I don't know if anybody is interested in that. I think we could use just, a discussion, sort of a development meeting, I guess, is what I would call it.
I agree. That's one of the things I like at some of these site visits, is we get a chance to talk about something besides a particular project, or something more general about the commission and the goals and what have you. So I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
And one other thing, going back to whoever
If
was
we
coming,
have meetings that don't run too late.
that's a good idea.
Well,
I'll try and be quick right now. But on what Chuck and Anika were talking about on reworking the regulations, I'd be happy to do some of that writing. In my long and illustrious career, I spent a lot of time with the FAA regulations, the FDA regulations, and our company's processes and procedures. So I'll be happy to work on that. I think what we would need, maybe in one of these development meetings Anika was just talking about, is kind of a general philosophy discussion among ourselves for what we'd like the regulations to look like. One thing in just really quick, what I found when I was reading those and trying to learn them was there wasn't much of a narrative. There wasn't much to help you know chronologically how something was supposed to work. And so that's one thing that I'd like to at least talk about. If people agreed, maybe we could rework the regulations, at least from that one aspect. But anyway, that's just a thought.
We need to still be sharing the map of the town. I'd just as soon have that come down. There we go. Now I can see everybody who's talking. Thank you.
And is that good?
Yeah. And speaking of learning stuff about conservation, this month, maybe even already, is the MACC annual meeting, and we can sign up for it. And this is the one chance for professional development where we can get paid back from town funds. So I don't know if Andrew has heard about that as new on the commission, but it's definitely worth looking into what's available. And they have fundamentals classes, which are a good thing to take, and it's all being done on Zoom, so you can do it from home. And you can pick a couple of fundamentals classes to go to over the next couple of weeks. So I'd go on to their website and look into it if you haven't. Go to over the next couple of weeks. So I'd go on to their website and look into it if you haven't.
I looked at that briefly and I saw there was an expense and I'm like, no, thank you. So that expense can be covered by the town, or is that what you said?
It's a reimbursement. So just so you know, but if you're okay with doing that, then keeping your receipt and passing them in to me, you'll be paid back. And luckily it may take less than a month.
And make sure when you sign up that you get the member rate, because you are a member by being on the Conservation Commission. You may have to call them up on because you are a member by being on the Conservation Commission. Call them on the phone to make sure they have you listed that way. If you
I think we
don't-
went through that already. Andrew, didn't you?
Yeah, I should be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Everyone was checked out. We're up to date prior to the annual conference. So yeah, if anyone wants to sign up, I think it would be fine.
It's a lot easier to join those conferences by Zoom than it is to
Sign up. It would be fine.
It's a lot easier to join those conferences by Zoom than
Andrew, you're getting some very unreal Zoom lag in which, like, as in Anika spoke a whole sentence, and then we heard the entire full sentence echoed back from your
But it was an
microphone.
important sentence, so it was well worth hearing twice.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm afraid, Andrew was having technical difficulties before. I wonder if this is related.
Did Andrew?
Yeah. Oh, he's
It's
gone.
It's gone.
Gone but not forgotten.
All right. Anything else? I have one more thing. If we're
What's that?
We're
on.
going to talk about Harold Ave at all, or is that not on today's agenda?
I don't know. I mean,
It is not listed on the agenda document.
It's not listed on the agenda, so I'm tempted to not talk about it.
Okay.
I will let you know that I sent an email to the state asking and all the information that I sent the commission, and I asked them what they intend to do about it and to advise us on what, if anything, they think we should do about it.
When you sent it to the state, what entity did you send it to?
So it used to be EEOA, but I don't know if they're just hold on. Yeah, hold on a second. Let me get that.
Chuck, can you co-host? Andrew is joined on a family member's computer, I believe. And it's a cute dog, but Andrew probably wants to turn his camera back on.
I gotta figure out how to rename myself here. Yeah, I had to go to my iPad. Hopefully this is better.
So far, so good.
Say hi to Bree for us.
Thumb in the picture.
I'm on my iPad. I can't figure out how to rename myself.
So
Joe can put you in the minutes as Andrew Driven still.
Yeah, I won't. I won't.
Right, yeah,
I
sorry
will
for
not
the
add.
distraction.
I will not.
So Chuck, what were you saying? I mean, what group did you send it to?
Oh, here we go. Yeah, I know this is not going to come out of. So I sent it to. Oh, they don't even have it on their tagline. So they're all working from home. So I just have, 2 names here. But I can look into it in the morning and get that to you. But it is. So from EEOA, we used to send everything to John Goyer. Then they changed the names. John Goyer left. And on his phone message, he gave these 2 names and emails. And I've been working with him. For, I don't know, 4 years on other conservation restrictions. I haven't heard too much from these 2 people, but I did send him an email, and I've also sent them an email about 10 Corey Lane, which is another conservation restriction that we're going to have to get into as soon as it's ready. But I haven't heard back from them. So that used to be EEOA, but I'm not sure who the entity is now and what their new name is.
Okay, I just was, I didn't know if it was the circuit rider or somebody entirely different. So
entirely different,
yeah,
not
just trying to picture how
DEP
this
at
works.
all. Yeah. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but I think that we should do the letter. We should send something out. We can work on the encroachment into the conservation restriction, but also the work that is in the 25-foot zone. But leave the discussion to the next meeting, but me and Brian should work on the letter.
Yeah, I haven't written one in hours. It's about time to do another one.
I know. I know. Let's get to make it more boilerplate than.
Does the water and sewer bill still need to be on our agenda, or have we moved that out of our purview?
We have. So is that story, I don't know if I thought people would want to know that story. So me and Brian mentioned it at the town DPW meeting, and Jane Kinsella, I don't know. Is it the fact, it says DPW on it, but I guess it comes from somewhere else. And she said that we would have no luck talking to Joe Huggins about him taking over the finances of this. I gave two options. We weren't going to pay it. We're going to try to get Joe to pay it. And I mentioned we weren't going to pay it because we didn't have a budget. And she didn't think we could do that for very long. But anyways, I gave Joe a call and didn't know what to expect. But Joe was really, he thought it was a great idea. He did have a line item for water and sewer for the Matera cabin already. And as long as I got Sharon Armstrong's, approval, he would take it on. So all that has happened, and we will never see a water and sewer bill from Pearl Street again.
Well done.
It's a good day.
It was a good day. It was a might as well give Joe a call, and it ended up working out.
I'm glad to hear that. All right. Well, there's this, there's this lull. I think we're all done. Is there anything else? Martha?
Minutes to approve from February 23rd.
Right, the ones you worked on. Thank you.
And the only change I noticed was that I had not put in members absent, which was Joe and John.
Okay. Are there any other edits to the minutes from February 23rd? Okay.
There was also a comment that Chuck highlighted in yellow that he didn't know who said it. And I don't remember who said it, and I would have attributed it if I had written it in my notes. It was about habitat and vernal pools and things like that. And maybe we can just delete that comment.
I thought we could delete it. It didn't seem to make any sense. It wasn't substantive. Yeah.
The video.
Okay, so I move to approve the minutes from February 23rd.
Seconded.
As amended.
As amended.
Yes, as amended to elide the comment that Chuck's highlighted comment, and then the thing that was the highlighted comment was about. All right. So, given those amendments, sorry, Anika, you're the chair.
Motion and seconded. So let's vote.
Joe Carnahan in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Andrew Driven in favor.
John Sullivan.
Martha Moore in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor. Okay. Well, I guess that's it, Chuck. It's an easy week for you.
Yeah. Another easy week.
And thank you, everybody.
What am I going to do for the next 2.5 hours?
Move to adjourn.
I'll take a motion to adjourn and ask RCTV to stop recording.
Second.
Oh, I did send that email to them, but they didn't reply.
Okay.
Yeah. So RCTV,
And
don't record after we adjourn.
And then so there's a motion and seconded.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the meeting's adjourned. And now, because they're not recording anymore.
But they are.
Totally are.
Recording stopped.
Yay!
I stopped it. Now we can hang out if anybody wants to go get a beer. Except
I have so y'all can stay. Or actually, it would be probably better if all of you didn't stay and it was just me and Anika that talked over something. But you can call me tomorrow too, Anika. It's about Corey Lane. It's a situation where 20 years ago,